Welcome back. We're talking about incentivizing kids to do well in school, attend school, and other incentives for families at-risk communities. And I want to bring this to the entire panel now. The notion of paying kids to go to school, incentivizing school and other behaviors, a lot of people out there might say, well, the education is the incentive itself. You get this education at the end of the process if you go through it. What do you think about the idea of?
Well, look, I'm going to confess, I feel a sort of instinctive discomfort with the whole process. It somehow feels wrong to me. And yet, if we're dealing with something that is so critically important as attendance at school and an issue that is proven resistant to other solutions, I don't think we can afford to simply reject options automatically because they may run against our sensibilities. It really is an empirical question of whether it works. And if it works, how do the details need to be structured in order to have the best bang for the buck? And if indeed it is effective, then I think it's something that needs to be explored. So we should be grateful that there are experiments going on right now in which this can be tried in different forms. And if a successful model can be found, then maybe we consider scaling it up.
Marie, is it safe to say that the jury's still out on the effectiveness? This is a model program. Memphis
is still a model program. Memphis is still a model program. I did mention before we are in phase 2 and the second implementation. But you know, you learn from your first mistakes and you move on and you try to improve upon what you learn. And that's what Family Rewards is at this point. It's more streamlined as opposed to being multiple incentives. It's streamlined to there being 3 domains, you know, more achievable domains in which now we're working with high school students as opposed to junior high school students. We're providing the support, the backbone for many of the high school students as well as their parents in helping to help them earn. You know, our intent is not to lead them, our intent is to help them. And many of them do want to earn. So we look at that aspect of it and we help in using tools necessary to help motivate them. So that's an important factor for us.
Shelley, I'm curious your take on it from what you've heard.
Well, I think one thing it's important to note is that this is not a taxpayer-funded initiative. So we start with saying there's some nonprofit money that's being used to come up with some creative solutions to a problem that has been very difficult to solve. I share with the mayor some sort of instinctive response that it's unfortunate that you need money. On the other hand, I strongly disagree with the professor that sort of low-income people are sort of there because they're not motivated by the same things that everyone else is motivated, which is to have a stable life for themselves and their children.
To be fair, he was saying that low-income families are less motivated by financial incentives than middle-class families.
I'm not sure that's accurate at all, and I think that instinctively that sounds incorrect to me, and so I think we ought to call him on it. That being said, I think one of the problems we are identifying here is that hardworking families, and I know it's not the subject, hardworking families are not making enough to get by enough to meet the requirements of raising their children in a way that, for example, they could apply to college or they could do the things that a middle-class family would want and desire for their children. And there are many approaches to fixing that. This might be one to begin to see if we can address it in some creative way.
You know, Dom, I admit that I'm torn on this. You know, I think I'm with the mayor. If it works, then let's go for it. But on some level, there isn't a feeling of paying kids or incentivizing kids to do something they're supposed to be doing anyway. It's almost like paying them for staying out of trouble or staying out of jail. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I was trying to run out the clock on this topic. I really was.
I apologize.
I really was. I was hoping that we ran out of time because I really am torn on this initiative. I support the excellent work of professionals that are trying to help the families, but I know this issue very well, having grown up in the projects, grown up on welfare, food stamps, attending college only because of taxpayers of New York State that made it possible for me to go to school. But with that said, and I commended Mayor Bloomberg when he started this type of initiative, having covered him, because I thought it was a good idea at the time, but it also plays, I think we're listening to diplomatic answers, it plays to the worst common stereotype that there is. And the stereotype that whether we are admitting it or not, is that we're saying these people, mostly minority, African Americans, Latinos, that you can't really help them. The only way you're going to save them is to motivate them with money. And I just think that it sends, as somebody that, and I'm not saying I did it all by myself, because I stand on the shoulders of many others coming out of the Throgs Neck projects in the Bronx and the Patterson projects. But I just, and see where I'm torn, because I see the kids every day, and these kids need help. There are tremendous problems. But I just think that to say, if you go to school for the next month, we'll give you $40 or whatever the case may be, I just think it sends the wrong signal.
We got to wrap things up, Maria. I want to give you the last word here to address any of the concerns that you've heard, or just to any last comment that you want to share with us.
I think we have a social obligation. Poverty and inequality go hand in hand. And yes, it is to say that most times who it goes hand in hand with is minorities. And that's just the reality of the situation. And basically in itself, it's our job to invest in those who need the extra help. And if this is one of the innovative ways in which this can happen, let's make it happen. But come up with something that is of a, stronger solution. Here are these, private investments and non-taxpayer money. It's non-taxpayer money that's being thrown here and put into this to try to see how best we can help these families. And I think it's our job to do so.
Marie Edwards, Program Director for BronxWorks, thank you for joining us. Good luck with the program. I think, we got our fingers crossed. If this works, this would be fantastic for everybody.
I think it will work.
Thank
you for the work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. After that, Governor Cuomo gets a big boost. Well, his challenger gets a big boost, I should say. Should the governor be keeping an eye out for Zephyr Teachout? We'll get into that next.